zombie shooter. What do you think of when you hear the words wave-based zombie shooter? Now I can imagine you're probably thinking about Call of Duty Zombies because I mean, why wouldn't you be thinking about it? It seems to be the only wave-based zombie game people know about at this point because of the mainstream plague that Call of Duty has become.
Το Zombies δεν έχει καμία σχέση με το Killing Floor. Το Killing Floor είναι σκάλες μπροστά. Στα πάντα σκάλες μπροστά. Το Zombies του Call of Duty είναι άστο. Είναι για τα παιδάκια. Το Killing Floor είναι σκάλες μπροστά. Είναι fun game. Fun game. Γι' αυτό και έχει πουλήσει πάρα πολύ, έτσι. Δηλαδή έχει πουλήσει πάρα πολύ και δεν έχει πουλήσει πολύ σε φάση το παίρνει κόσμος όπως παίρνει το Call of Duty. Είναι niche. Είναι για κοινό που την ψάχνει λίγο. Έχει ψάξει να βρει κανένα παιχνιδάκι. Καταλαβαίνετε τι εννοώ.
Although the new Zombies mode on Modern Warfare 3 looks kind of awful. Zombies in Call of Duty used to be pretty cool.
Το πήρες με 1,5€ και δεν σ' άρεσε. Εντάξει, δεκτό.
It's like a reward.
I'm gonna be honest, I have a lot of fond memories playing it back in the day on World at War with my brother, although I usually wouldn't be able to get past the intro cutscene without someone being in the room with me. I'm not talking about that though, instead I'm talking about another wave-based zombie shooter that I grew up with over a decade ago, and it's one that I still play frequently to this day. It's a little game called Killing Floor. Not the sequel, or the third game that was just announced. That shit looks hype though, I'm excited. We're talking about the OG game here, the British one.
I'm done in, you prats, help me!
Killing Floor is...
Αυτό είναι 15 χρόνων, έτσι. Serious Sam. Ναι, φοβερό game, αλλά εντάξει, δεν είναι multiplayer, το Serious Sam είναι άλλη φάση. Επίσης φοβερό game και το Serious Sam βεβαίως.
A 6-player wave-based zombie shooter that came out in 2009, and let me tell you, it's pretty awesome. It's just balls to the wall action where you blast zombies' heads off listening to intense...
Έχει και slow motion μέσα, έχει και slow mo.
that still holds up to this day. It just never gets old to me. It was published by a company known as Tripwire.
Από μουσική πάρα πολύ metal, ρε φίλε, πολύ metal.
And you can
Πολύ metal.
buy it for less than
Πριν τις εποχές των Doom, πριν τις εποχές από Mick Gordon και Doom.
By the end of this video,
Legit
I'm
πράγματα.
interested in checking it out because the game is bordering on being like
Πολύ πριν από Doom.
Okay, so I just want to make it clear that I wrote this part of the script like over a year ago, and it's aged really badly. Killing Floor actually outlived the Queen. Long live Killing Floor, I guess. I should probably mention Killing Floor can run on a fucking toaster, so you don't have to worry about PC specs or anything. You'll be able to have non-stop fun for hours with this game on your dad's microwave. Just like with a lot of games though, Killing Floor wasn't always like it. In fact, it was almost a completely different game altogether.
Το original Killing Floor, το πρώτο, αυτό που λέει τώρα, αυτή τη στιγμή μετά από τόσα χρόνια το παίζουν 694 άτομα, ρε παιδί. Δηλαδή μπαίνεις και έχει servers μέσα και παίζει κόσμος. Και το Killing Floor 2, το πριν το τελευταίο τους, είναι στα 15.000 άτομα κοντά. Σεβαστό. Πολύ σεβαστό. Καταλάβατε.
It started out as a mod for Unreal Tournament 2004. The basics were still similar, you know, you're still playing a first-person shooter where you shoot zombie-like enemies, but in the original mod there weren't waves. Instead, it was a linear campaign, and it was actually pretty scary. The general gameplay was...
Αν θα κάνω αύριο live στην Hellblade, ναι. Από τις 7 ώρα το απόγευμα, 8 σίγουρα. Θες ένα παιχνίδι δεύτερο παγκόσμιο πόλεμο, αλλά τέρμα dark και ομόχικο και μαλακίες. Κάποιος θα το βγάλει, ρε.
Still there, you know, you're still shooting fellas, but this time with finite resources, and you're in this dark, dingy world completing objectives. It was basically just a survival horror game. I mean, check out the main menu. You could probably get tetanus just from looking at it. In the mod, you play as some random ass army dude who was a part of DRS.
Έχει και μοντάκια, βάζει και μοντάκια, έτσι. Το μοντάρεις καλά στο
You were
game.
sent to London to take care of some unknown outbreak with some mates, but yeah, they weren't too lucky and you're one of the only survivors left. Since everything went completely wrong, your current objective is to reach any other survivors for a slight chance to escape with your life still intact. It's incredibly basic, but this was a 2004 mod. It works, I guess. The first thing you'll notice with this mod is how gross and grungy it looks. You look like you could catch a disease around every single corner, so it's accurate to the UK. Honestly, there are sections in the mod where it's downright unsettling at times. It oozes with a thick, ominous atmosphere.
Μια χαρά, πολύ ωραίο μοντάκι είναι. Είναι ακριβώς όπως ήταν τα mods και όπου πάντοτε έτσι ήταν. Δηλαδή, για αυτές τις εποχές τότε Play 15 χρόνια, έτσι ήταν τα mods. Όλοι τι έκαναν.
Even when enemies are attacking and there's heavy metal playing, it's still kinda creepy. I could go in depth about the mod, but it takes about 40 minutes to finish, and it's not really the main course of this video. It's the appetizer. Oh look, there's a second appetizer right next to it. This mod was later changed. Instead of it being a dark, spooky campaign going through the depths of London fighting for your life, it was a wave-based game where you hold out on different maps, fighting for your life again, but with friends. This idea stuck, and it was later more refined with a better UI, better gore, and even more weapons. And this version of the mod is probably the closest to the game we have today.
Και μετά κάτσανε και το φτιάξανε και το κάνανε game, έτσι. Έγινε ένα στούντιο και...
Which is when we got the killing floor we know today, which was released on Steam in 2009. So let's talk about Killing Floor, the best zombie game you've probably never heard of. Well, until now. The objective of the game is simple. You have to survive either 4, 7 or 10 waves with a boss at the end that you and your fellow friends...
Γεια σου Γιώτη μου, καλή ξεκούραση, να είσαι καλά.
Simple, but getting to that point is quite a challenge. Unless you play on the beginner difficulty, which is what I did as a kid because... I was a fucking pussy, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Each wave has you killing a certain amount of zombies. Well, they're called Zeds in this game, so I'm gonna refer to them as that from now on. I probably should have specified that earlier. There are different variations of Zeds you have to kill, like an entire cast of them. Each one has completely different, unique mechanics.
Έχουν δικά τους perks, έτσι.
I think they would be great in a sitcom together.
Αν είχα Thread Reaper Epic Zion, όχι ποτέ. Όχι, όχι, όχι.
What do you think you're doing? You're really starting to piss me off.
The early waves start simple. You gotta face off against stuff like clots, which are basic zombies. There's also Gorfasts, which are faster clots with blades for arms, and occasionally you have to deal with an American. You get it? Because they're fat? Yeah.
Και Sky μετά και σε γεμίζουν με μια αυτή.
The later you get into the waves, the more shit the game throws at you, eventually leading up to the horrifying powerhouse versions of the Zeds. Like the Scrake, which is this large doctor-looking guy with a chainsaw. Oh, and of course the iconic abomination known as Flesh Pounds. If you see one of these things, you do one of two things. Pelt it with every single round you have in the magazine.
Ναι, δεν γίνεται διαφορετικά. Δεν γίνεται διαφορετικά.
I haven't even mentioned some of
Ή θα τους φάτε παρέα, θα σε γαμάνε.
But what I can say is each one is absolutely unique in both their abilities and visual design. Visual design especially, they are all intimidating as fuck and stand out from each other. I found them so intimidating that I actually refused to play the game by myself when I was younger. Call me a pussy all you want, but I was 10 at the time. I don't think I should have been playing Killing Floor. I probably should have stuck to Little Big Planet, the best game ever made. Hell yeah! Then there's the boss, the Patriarch. This guy does not mess around. Sure, he wears glasses like a specky four-eyed loser, but they just help him aim with his hit-scanning minigun arm. This boss fight can make or break a match. He has so many tricks up his...
Μπορεί να πάρεις όλα τα waves, να φτάσεις μέχρι το τέλος, να τα γαμίσεις όλα και μόλις φτάσεις σε αυτόν τον τύπο εδώ πέρα, πώς το λεγότανε, κάτι... Matriarch. Όταν φτάσεις σε αυτόν και παίξεις με αυτόν, να σας γαμίσει όλους. Αλλά άμα είχατε καλά όπλα και είχατε λουτάρει, τον έχεις και γρήγορα.
Sleeve, and you just don't see them coming half the time, which is strange because he always does the exact same thing when he spawns in on wave 10. He turns invisible at a random part of the map and instantly makes a beeline straight towards you. Thing is, you never know where he's gonna come from, and the only time you'll know he's there, well, it's usually too late by that time. While fighting him, you should have some of the best weapons in the game, like the absolute best firearms you can get from the trader with your hard-earned Great British Pounds. But even then, he can still absolutely demolish you and your teammates. All of this would be frustrating and horrible, having to restart entire matches working your way back up to the good weapons. But here's the thing, it isn't annoying, because even the starting weapons pack a punch. Gunplay is always a very important part.
Ακόμα και τα αρχικά όπλα, ακούσατε την πέρετα, έτσι. Ακούτε αντρίλα, full. Δηλαδή, το νιώσατε.
Restart entire matches working your way back up to the good weapons. But here's the thing, it isn't annoying, because even the starting weapons pack a punch. Gunplay is always a very...
Κόβουνε και το βασικό όπλο και η μπερέτα κόβει.
And there's never a between for how good it is in games. It's either flaccid and horrible, or literal gun porn.
Hand Showdown, παράδειγμα.
And there's never an in-between for how good it is in games. It's either flaccid and horrible, or literal gun porn.
Α, και το χάν.
Thankfully, killing floor is definitely pornography in that department, especially the shotguns in the game. You can always determine whether or not an FPS game is good just from the shotguns alone. The way Zeds react to the impact of the bullets is insanely satisfying too, especially headshots. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, there's this mechanic that randomly triggers called Z time that makes the game move in slow motion.
Αν και το slow-mo, βέβαια.
At the best times. It's just so cool. What can
Εκεί με τα μυαλά και αυτά.
Different classes called perks, and you get incredible boosts if you're using the weapons specifically made for them. There are a total of 7 in the game, and each one is completely unique. For starters, we got the Commando, which specializes in assault rifles. It feels like the most basic perk to choose, and honestly, it's my least favorite out of the 7, but it's still great despite this. You're also able to.
Είναι για αυτό που παίζει Call of Duty και θέλει να παίξει τα assault rifles και τα τέτοια, δηλαδή. Τέτοια φάση.
Far more easily compared to everyone else. This also includes the Patriarch, so having a commando on your team during higher difficulties is pretty essential. Then we have the Demolitions perk, which is probably the biggest damage dealer out of the 7. I mean, you already know why. The next perk on the list is the Field Medic, which is the support perk that I see absolutely nobody play. Because let's be real, playing as a support is usually pretty boring. Support classes in games usually just have.
Εμένα μου αρέσει να παίζω το support πάντως στα παιχνίδια.
You know, the actual game itself. But Killing Floor is a different story. The Field Medic focuses on SMGs. There's a cool gimmick though. They have little healing darts in them, so you're able to heal teammates while shooting into huge crowds of Zeds, keeping you in the gameplay while supporting teammates. It's just genius. They also have unique gas grenades that heal your team within a radius, while also damaging Zeds.
Δεν είναι βαρετό τόσο healer στο παιχνίδι αυτό.
It's just good shit. If you play Field Medic, you're amazing. Then we have the Firebug, which obviously specializes in fire weapons. It's kind of boring. I mean, you got the obvious stuff for this perk, like flare revolvers. Oh wait, I forgot we're playing Killing Floor here. The Firebug is cool. It's very good for crowd control, encasing the field in scorching flames, which thankfully don't damage your teammates.
Thanks, pal.
You can also play as the Pyro from TF2 in this game, which gives Firebug a few extra points in the cool department.
Ωραίο γκιμικάκι.
There's a single bad perk, and we still have 3 more to talk about, like the sharpshooter.
Είχε πράγμα μέσα, έχει πράγμα μέσα το game, ρε παιδιά.
The bunch, as its main focus is popping Zed's heads, which will never not be satisfying, especially if it initiates Z time, allowing you to see all of the chunks fly everywhere in slow motion. Hi FBI agent watching this, I hope you're enjoying the video. Make sure you like it, make sure you leave a like. I'm saving the best for last here. So the next perk I'm gonna talk about is the Berserker, which is the Caveman perk, where you focus on swinging your big weapon around.
Για όποιους θέλουν melee.
What, you wanted me to say something else?
Όποιους παίζουν melee.
Last but not least, we have the best perk.
Όποιος θέλει melee παίζει αυτό το πράγμα. Εμένα δεν μου αρέσουν τα melee πολύ.
It's the support specialist. The weapons you use with this perk are shotguns.
Το double barrel είναι τίγκα.
Each and every one is useful in its own way. There aren't any duds in this list at all. There's a perfect amount of variety here. Now you may recall me mentioning weapons are related to these different classes. While yes, they are meant for the perks they're used for, you can still buy them with any perk, but you're always nowhere near as effective using them if your perk doesn't match the weapon. The fact you're able to do this is nice though, and hell, it could even give you a personal challenge if you're a sadist and want your guns to be shit. Despite all of this action and carnage though, the final version of Killing Floor still has the eerie atmosphere of the mod. Being alone
είναι πολύ dark.
is incredibly
Είναι πάρα πολύ dark.
You feel like you're being watched between waves.
Ναι.
It's just really ominous.
Είναι πάρα πολύ dark το game. Πραγματικά νιώθεις ότι σε κοιτάνε τα mobs, δηλαδή. Η στιγμή που περιμένεις να ξεκινήσει το επόμενο wave και άμα φύγεις λίγο από την παρέα σου, από την ομάδα σου και ξεμείνεις μόνος σου κάπου και ξεκινήσεις το wave και σε μόνος σου, είναι τρομακτικό πολύ. Γιατί μπορεί να σου πεταχτούν 500 άτομα και να σου φάνε κατευθείαν. Δύσκολο στο χειρίδιο στο Division 6, εξαρτάται τι build είχες μωρέ. Όλο εντάξει τώρα. Εντάξει, οκ, δεν ήταν κάτι, οκ. Όλος ο κόσμος στο Division, φίλε, έπαιζε με συγκεκριμένα builds, 1-2 builds παίζαν όλοι και τα ίδια όλοι τώρα. Άμα θέλω μέλη να πάω στην ορεινή μέλισσα, αλλά θα σου πω εγώ.
Killing Floor is a game that means a lot to me, and it's a game that stood the test of time. I can still hop onto a random ass server for a match and have an absolute blast playing it. I hope this video has made you interested,
στο Legendary, εντάξει, ναι.
especially if you've never heard of it before. If you're not into old games though, Killing Floor 3 is probably coming out at some point soon, so you could always just wait for that to release.
Έβαλε τη μουσική από το Prey. Αυτό ήταν το Killing... Τώρα και βγαίνει Killing Floor 3. Μετά από τόσο καιρό βγαίνει Killing Floor 3, το οποίο είναι αυτό έτσι, μετά από τόσα χρόνια τώρα. Ξέρω εγώ, 12 χρόνια, 13.
The Killing Floor franchise for us has always been about that power fantasy. The feeling that it's almost out of your control, and sometimes is completely out of your control and turns into complete mayhem.
I've been making Killing Floor since the beginning. We didn't really have like official titles.
I did a lot of initial game mode prototyping and just anything to get the game up and running.
The original Killing Floor we did with, I think we were 12 or 15 people.
Μαλάκα, γεράσαν όλοι ρε μαλάκα μετά από τόσα χρόνια. Κοίτα εδώ ρε μαλάκα, στον πατέρα μου, γεράσαν όλοι ρε μαλάκα. Μεγαλώσαν όλοι.
Killing Floor 1 was a very grindhouse, dark, gritty survival horror. Back in the day, having access to enough people and enough talent to make what you want wasn't there. We had like 3 months, maybe 4 months.
There wasn't a lot of polished UI and matchmaking and stuff like that.
It was, you know, Leland, you have a week to take each one of these maps and change as much as you possibly can, right? It was, David, you have a day to make each enemy. Bill, you have a day to animate each enemy. So it was do or die to get that first game done.
A couple of weeks before we were due to release, Bill and Dave with their art hats on got the four of us in a room and went, it's got to look better than this. And I was, guys, we've maxed out the credit cards. The bank account has 1 payroll left in it, and that goes out on Friday.
Άκουσα τι είπε.
Goes out on Friday.
Όταν ήταν να βγει το πρώτο Killing Floor, είχαν μαξάρει όλες τις πιστωτικές κάρτες, είχαν στην τράπεζα λεφτά μόνο για να πληρωθούν όλοι μια φορά οι υπάλληλοι, και το παιχνίδι που τα λεφτά θα φεύγανε σε 2 μέρες Παρασκευή, και το παιχνίδι θα βγει επίσης Παρασκευή, και ήταν όλοι στο χέσιμο αν θα πάει καλά για να βγάλουν λεφτά να ξαναπληρωθούν οι άνθρωποι. Έτσι. Φοβερό.
In a room and went, it's got to look better than this. And I was, guys, we've maxed out the credit cards. The bank account has 1 payroll left in it, and that goes out on Friday. There's nowhere else to go. And we released the game, and people loved it. We went, holy shit, it worked.
It was a really fun time. It was a very intense deadline. We were much younger. You know, we were all in our 20s at that time, so we had a lot more energy to do that.
The Killing Floor 2, we got to step it up a bit. I think we were at about 45, 50 people at that point.
Και πάλι αρκετά άτομα είναι. Και πάλι αρκετά άτομα.
I was heavily involved in the animation and all the little details that we didn't feel other first-person shooters at that time had.
Killing Floor 2 went more of a polished science horror vibe. There's much more weapons and classes. You actually have modern server infrastructure with matchmaking.
We had perks, and each one of those perks would have different bonuses for different types of weapons, certain different ways to play. The enemies move faster, the difficulty is more intense. It's its own thing.
Well, that was our first real tilt at the console.
Έχει δίκιο, το Killing Floor 2 ήταν διαφορετικό από το 1. Ήταν άλλη φάση.
I've been a fan of Killing.
Ήταν άλλη φάση το 2 από το 1.
I was working on another game. One of the other character artists says, there's a game I want to try with you guys. And I was like, all right, like I'm down. I like monsters. So during crunch, that artist would be like, you're from Georgia, right? Wouldn't it be crazy if you worked on that one day? So that was my introduction. One of my thoughts when I was given the opportunity to lead the team is that Killing Floor was a bit of a cult hit. I know I wanted it to return to this level of horror, have some cult elements.
Ναι, horror, τίγκα. Να είναι φρικιαστικό, να είναι τίγκα το game.
So we'd be in the office and we'd be working on dry erase boards, and it was just basically Dave Hensley and I kind of talking about what the game could be. And then COVID hit, and I was like, we're gonna work remote. So all of a sudden there wasn't just like Atlanta, Roswell as this hub for it, and we could open the floodgates to people that wanted to be a part of the team.
I was on the team leading the design for Maneater DLC, and that took about a year, and then I came onto the prototype for Killing Floor 3.
You get to start with an idea, make something a reality, and then play it, say, hey, do we want to iterate on this
Concept.
more, or
Conceptάκι.
try something different?
It's just about finding what's fun, what works, really set it up to when we moved into production, we knew, for the most part, what we wanted to make and how were we going to make it.
Conceptάκι.
Just the simplest possible representation of each thing, except gun sights, that has to be accurate.
Within a week, I had a pretty strong idea of what the teaser trailer would look like when we first announced.
Was still feeling like a Killing Floor title, while at the same time elevating it.
I think Tripwire is definitely the house that Killing Floor built at this point.
There were fun things about the scrappier days. I think as we've grown, we've kept the heart of what makes Tripwire special, while also becoming more
Φοβερό.
having access to better technology and more skilled employees.
It's been 10 years. Let's step the
Είδατε πόσο προσεκτικοί είναι. Ό,τι δείχνουν αυτή τη στιγμή, πέρα από το Killing Floor 1 και από το Killing Floor 2, ό,τι δείχνουν από το Killing Floor 3 είναι ούτε pre-alpha, είναι concept. Σου δείχνουν όλα τα σάπια τα παλιά. Δεν δείχνουν τίποτα καινούργιο, τίποτα από ό,τι έχουν δουλέψει. Δηλαδή σου δείχνουν όλα τα παλιά, κατάλαβες, επίτηδες. Είναι πονηροί.
right up and give people some new challenges.
Μια χαρά. Εγώ αυτό το περιμένω πώς και πώς. Αναμονή.